This is Honda's Rebel 300, and it has been haunting MSF parking lots since it first came out in 1985. People consider this to be one of the best beginner motorcycles because it's got a combination of manageable power, a low weight and seat height, as well as all the controls that make a motorcycle so that new riders can get the same foundation they need to go to any bigger bike out there. However, with one mod, has Honda managed to take the best beginner motorcycle out there and turned it into just another step-through scooter. This right here is the 2026 Honda Rebel, and new for 26, we have the Eclutch. Eclutch is one of those things that split the motorcycling community into three camps. There's the die-hard, get-good types that won't be happy unless every new rider struggles as much as they did. Then there's the folks that see tech like this as a way to bring new riders into the fold through increased accessibility. And then I suspect the third camp is where the vast majority of folks are going to be. And we're going to call that group the not my circus, not my monkeys crowd. They look at the Eclutch and go, neat. And then they move on with their life because they're on a different Honda with a normal clutch, though let's be real, at this point it's probably a slipper clutch with a quick shifter and a blipper. But here's the thing, when Honda first released the Eclutch here in the States, you could only buy the CB650 and CBR650R in the Eclutch version. There was no more standard clutch available. And now the same thing has happened to the Rebel 300. And this is where the doomer in me sees the insidious march of progress, and I immediately want to hit the fuck no go back button. Because if we don't stop it here, how long before it's the CBR 600RR that is E-clutch only? And then in a few years' time, it's 1000cc super scooters everywhere because we don't have performance motorcycles with standard clutches anymore, and essentially it's just paddle shifters like cars. Now, as fun as the slippery slope argument is to make, it assumes that the E-clutch is a bad thing, which leaves the question, is it? At this point, it would be helpful to explain what an E-clutch actually is. E-clutch is a system devised by Honda where they stuff a little monkey into the clutch case, and when you shift gears, there's a motor that jabs him with a sharp stick, and then the monkey works the clutch for you. Not really, but also not really. It's actually kind of brilliant. A little motor physically pulls the clutch whenever you decide to shift, unlike a quick shifter which interrupts the spark or cuts fuel. The E-clutch actually moves the clutch plates. It also pulls the clutch for you when you come to a stop or start, meaning that you could start the bike in neutral, smack it down into first gear without using the clutch, and take off like you're on a twist and go scoot with a manual transmission. It lives somewhere between a typical quick shifter and a DCT clutch. On upshifts, it's functionally identical to a quick shifter, albeit fractionally slower. And to the guys in the comments who are saying, see, this is why you need a quick shifter and a standard transmission, you are not fast enough to notice the difference. Because I am not fast enough to notice the difference because none of us are racing in Moto America or MotoGP. I'm sorry. And yes, I'm talking directly to you, Mike. You, I know, because we're both in the intermediate group. And if we were to start just standard clutching our way around the racetrack, we would be no slower than we are with our fancy quick shifters. I promise you that extra fraction of a second between a quick shifter and an E-clutch is not gonna slow you down. Where the E-clutch really interests me, especially on a motorcycle that's only making roughly 27, 28, or 30 horsepower on a good day, is the fact that you can downshift an E-clutch motorcycle at wide open throttle. Because it's actually moving the clutch plate, it can sort all of that force out for you, and it functionally acts like a slipper clutch. If I tried to do that on my Super Duke, it'd probably explode. I can definitely see the benefit, not just on this motorcycle, but even on that CBR 600RR we mentioned before, where you come around a corner one gear higher than you should be, and instead of having to roll off, clutch in, click down, clutch out, roll on, you just stay rolled on and click down, and the bike does it for you. Now, all that works in theory, but how does it actually work out on the streets?
Now, I'm really trying to approach this video as if I'm coming at it from the perspective of a first-time rider, because according to Honda, 37% of the people who are buying a Rebel 300 are buying their very first motorcycle. And with that in mind, there's a philosophical question that I'm really trying to answer today, and that is, if I were the Red Raw beginner who's going out and getting their very first motorcycle, Am I learning how to ride a motorcycle, or am I learning how to ride an Eclutch motorcycle? Because I really do think there is a difference. And that's what I really want to find out today. So we're going to be goofing around, and I do want to let my thoughts percolate. So maybe we'll roll some nice B-roll over some California music. But seriously, before we do that, this is one of the coolest parts. So I'm in 6th gear, 40 miles an hour, and Ryan right there, that's the Honda guy, wide open throttle, right? No power. 3 gears down at full throttle. That's insane. That still blows my mind whenever I do that on an Eclutch motorcycle. Wide open throttle, banging gears down like it's not a problem. It's like a quick shifter, but better? I don't know. Like I said, I need more time on the motorcycle, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. Enjoy a montage.
Now, one thing that's worth mentioning is that the Eclutch doesn't actually increase the MSRP over last year's base ABS model. That means there's definitely a few corners that got cut to keep that $53.49 price tag, and one of those would be the dashboard. There's not much to write home about here, and in direct sunlight, it's actually kind of hard to read, which is a big bummer. That's where today's sponsor, Chigee, comes in. They make the best aftermarket dashboards you can slap on just about every bike. They're big touchscreen TFT displays that show your speed, direction, monitor tire pressure, and all that good stuff. But it also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in, along with a pair of dash cams that are perfect for somebody trying to film their rides or keep footage for insurance. The best part is the AIO6 can be swapped from bike to bike. If you're interested in checking one of these out for yourself, click that link down in the description below and use the code SPIKESCORNER for 10% off your order.
So something that's interesting, and I'm noticing that's different between the Rebel 300 Eclutch and the CB650s, the CBR 650 and CB 650R that I rode before, because this motor, I would reckon it's because this motor is a lot smaller, especially on the downshifts, you can hear and feel the Eclutch actually working. It definitely feels a little bit more... I'm not going to say it feels DCT because it doesn't really, but it feels like the motor is actually, you know, modulating the clutch for you, which is exactly what it's doing. You can feel it happening in real time. It doesn't feel bad. I'm just going to go ahead and say that now. But there is some sort of, you know, electronic vibe to it. You can tell that a computer is doing it. But it's also really nice on these hills to not have to worry about the clutch. That would be something that would, you know, it's just another point of friction between a beginner and riding and having fun, is remembering to manage and feather that clutch. Like, there's no stalling this thing. I mean, you can stall it if you're at a stop. Let's see if we hit a red light. So we're at a full stop, covering that front brake. There, stalls. See? Not unstallable, virtually unstallable. But now, because I have the clutch in, this bike is going to operate just like a normal clutch motorcycle. And something that's improved here over the other bikes is it doesn't necessarily feel like there's something between me and the clutch. There was something about on the 650s, it felt like there was something between me and the clutch. I'm not getting that here. And again, just being able to bang those downshifts regardless of throttle position, very unique. Very, very unique. I've never been able to do that on a motorcycle before. Alright folks, I have now been riding this Rebel 300 all day throughout the hills here in LA and downtown and in traffic and on twisties and all sorts of stuff. And I wanted to answer a question that I kind of posed at the beginning that I think all of the graybeards down in the comments have already said. That Honda has turned the Rebel 300 into a scooter. That this is the worst thing they could have done. They're making it too simple. They're ruining this as a platform to learn for other riders. By making it so that you don't have to interact with the clutch lever, this thing is no longer the legendary beginner bike that it once was. It is now just another accessibility scooter. Okay, sure, if you want to think that, go ahead. But honestly, I really don't see much of a difference between the Eclutch that's on here and a quick shifter in practice. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that you end up using your clutch for on a big bike that has a quick shifter is you're just using it to get the bike started. And even at the highest levels in MotoGP, they're just using the clutch to start the bike, and then they never touch the clutch again. If you didn't have to come to a stop, the only difference between the Eclutch and any other motorcycle out there with a quick shifter is the fact that you can bang a downshift at full throttle. It's so weird to just be doing that. It feels wrong the first couple of times, but I would love to try this on a racetrack, especially on like one of their inline fours, where, you know, you come around the corner in the wrong gear and then you're panicking and you're working your way through all of the gears trying to find the right spot as opposed to just mushing the lever down and, you know, solving the problem. If I was really looking to nitpick, if I was really trying to find the fault here, it's that because the Eclutch exists, I would reckon that some people are just going to be quick to go to the Eclutch as opposed to, you know, trying to learn the fundamentals of leaving a stop. But the thing is, once you have that fundamental skill, it's not really going to go away. You just, you know, it's fine to just sit with the Eclutch doing its thing and leave a stop or come to a stop without shifting. Who cares? I do think it would take a little bit of discipline, though, to get somebody to actually learn the fundamentals of leaving a stop with the clutch. But other than that, this is probably the most accessible beginner bike I've ever been on. And I think that's probably where a lot of those graybeards are taking issue, right? They seem to not love the idea of getting more people on a motorcycle if it means that those people aren't learning the way they did it, because the way they did it is sacrosanct and they had to walk uphill both ways with their bare feet in the snow. My issue actually with Eclutch is I'm not sure I'm 100% on board with the idea of replacing every motorcycle on the lot with an Eclutch. And Honda's not going to do that. But here in the States, you don't have access to the CBR 650R without the Eclutch. You're stuck with only the Eclutch model. And I think having the option might help. But at the end of the day, I don't really think it makes that big a difference, because for most people, it's just fundamentally a quick shifter with some extra steps. Some people may say, oh, well, that's the problem. It's those extra steps that are going to cause an issue. What happens when the computer breaks? It fails safe. I actually asked that question of these guys earlier because I realized that I didn't know what would happen when I made my last Eclutch video. I asked them, what happens if there's a bum sensor or something's wrong with the motor? And they're like, it fails safe. So even if the Eclutch stops working, you can just use the clutch normally and bypass the Eclutch system. And I really would like to point out the fact that Honda has improved this. They weren't like shouting out these big changes, but what the changes are here are subtle. It feels a little bit more pulled together. It feels a little bit more professional here. It's no longer the first generation Eclutch. So since I haven't actually put a Rebel 300 on the channel yet, I figure I might as well talk about the bike itself, right? What is it actually like to ride? And yeah, it's totally fine. It's buzzy. I will say that. It's very buzzy. For me, more so than the buzz, the problem is ergonomics. This bike is not a spite-sized motorcycle. It just isn't. It was never built to carry a guy like me around. It's very bumpy. I'm blowing through the padding on the seat. It's not particularly comfortable in my hips. That's another thing. I keep ending up standing up like this, like I'm on a dirt bike, doing the vertical lower leg, ass out, back flat kind of situation. But I will say, for the riding that we're doing, which is a lot of like city bopping, cruising through these little tight twisties here in LA, this amount of power is perfect. I'll have the exact numbers on screen, but I think it's like 28 horsepower and like 20 something foot-pounds of torque. And the bike weighs about 380 pounds, 390 pounds. It's light. I will say it's actually kind of comical to use what feels like a quick shifter on this kind of a motorcycle, because you wouldn't expect to ride and not have to, you know, click the gears and stuff, or like move the clutch. You just ride it like a super sport, you know? And honestly, it's a lot of fun to check through the corners, because you can just, you know, you get over like this and then you start leaning, and the twisties are tight enough here that I start dragging the pegs. But beyond that, I mean, the bike is the same bulletproof little 300 that's been putting around town for like the last 10 years at this point. You can tell it's a budget motorcycle, but it's designed to be your first bike, and it's $5,350, something like that. It's less than $5,500, which nowadays, to be able to get a bike this competently screwed together for that cheap, heck yeah, man. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. A big shout out to Honda for bringing me out to check this thing out. I'm really excited to see what the new version of the Eclutch feels like on the CB750. But guys, that's where I'm gonna call it. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.